you will see. Palestine is almost free. Palestine is almost free. Palestine is almost free. Chicago!
Alright.
It is very important to also mention, while Genocide Joe is in there, we also have local elected officials like Governor J.B. Pritzker, who has supported a genocide. J.B. Pritzker actively fought against the people of Chicago's demand for a ceasefire resolution.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks, brother. Good to see you.
We shut his ass down. We will always stand up for Palestine in this fucking city. Excuse my language. And we won't stop, will we? Who's got the power? Who's got the power? What kind of power? What kind of power? What kind of power? Make some noise, Chicago! All right, Chicago. The last time the DNC was in Chicago was in 1968.
No, it wasn't. He's lying.
No, it's 90, 96.
But 1968 was during the Vietnam War, where tens of thousands protested in the streets against the DNC and against the U.S. complicity in the Vietnam War. 2024 is no different. The Democrats are complicit in the genocide of our people. And the 2024 DNC convention will live on as the genocidal convention, because while every politician is in there, our people are being slaughtered. Our people are being slaughtered, and these elected officials are complicit in it. The money that they send to Israel is killing our people. Everyone in Palestine is our relatives. They are killing our relatives. And if they think that they can come to the city with the largest Palestinian diaspora in the United States, and they think they can come peacefully, they are wrong. They are wrong. If you come to Chicago, you will not find peace if you are complicit in this genocide. Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! We know what that meeting's for! We know what that meeting's for! Genocide and war! Genocide and war!
I have a couple shots of the girls speaking when we were walking.
Okay.
You want to go over and try to get some of him?
Yeah, let's go.
The whole world is watching! While Israeli bombs are dropping! While Israeli bombs are dropping! The whole world is watching! The whole world is watching! While Israeli bombs are dropping! While Israeli bombs are dropping!
Sorry.
From the river to the sea!
You can get Pan if you want now.
The DNC has put together a platform. The Democratic platform is infused with hypocrisy. The Democratic platform says that health care is a human right. Yet at the same time, not a single functioning hospital, fully functioning hospital exists in Gaza The Democratic platform says that housing should be stable, should be safe, should be healthy. Yet 70 to 80% of the civilian infrastructure in Gaza has been destroyed with U.S.-made weapons and U.S. tax dollars.
Right,
That
you can get this
smacks
guy
of
now.
sheer hypocrisy. The Democratic platform believes in ending poverty. Yet 1.9 million Palestinians have been displaced, dispossessed, ethnically cleansed from their homes in Gaza. Some of them more than once, some of them more than twice, some of them more than 3 times with U.S.-made weapons and U.S. tax dollars. That smacks of sheer hypocrisy. So you cannot hide behind your hypocritical stances. You cannot stand behind your hypocritical policy and present them with a flowery message and a smile and think that we as voters will be deceived and will be tricked into voting for genocide. You must offer a new vision, a new path, a new agenda that calls for an arms embargo on the state of Israel, that calls for ending the occupation, ending the apartheid regime, ending settlements, ending home demolitions, ending checkpoints, and finally giving the Palestinians what they rightfully deserve. Justice under international law. If you cannot abide by the basic mainstream principles of international law, don't claim that you value democracy, equality, freedom, and justice. You are nothing but a hypocrite. So with that message in mind, we must tell the DNC this. Nothing short of freedom and liberation and justice for the Palestinians will keep us from these streets. A ceasefire is a first step. An end to the genocide is a first step. But if you think that's the end, you got another thing coming. This is a new generation of activism. And we will be on the streets until we have full liberation. Free, free Palestine! Up with liberation! Down with the occupation! Up with liberation! Down with the occupation!
Sorry.
Liberation! Down with the occupation!
It looks like they're going to let them turn north on Damon. They've got the curve set up. You know what? If Snelling is up there, because I can't tell if he's still up there.
Should we get farther ahead?
Maybe, yeah. Let's just take a look here. We're good. We're with you. Yep. Yeah, okay. This is...
Do you see him anywhere?
Yep. What's that?
Lake Street, Damon.
Yeah, Damon up to Lake, yeah.
Lake and Lake back.
Where do you guys want to set up?
All right, we're good right here.
Nice right side or left side? Move. Up on the curb. Up on this curb.
You interviewed me.
Yeah, Yeah, hey.
Where are
Thanks.
you? What are you
ABC
with?
7.
Oh,
ABC 7, yeah, we're from here.
From Chicago.
Yeah, from Chicago. Yeah. Thank you again for your time,
Put it
man.
out.
I appreciate it. I
Put it out.
appreciate it. We will.
Heartfelt, man.
I know, I could tell.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that,
Thanks for
man.
covering us.
No, of course. Absolutely, man.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
All right. We got a couple shots of him.
Oh, Snelling? Is that him right there in the...
Yep. In the middle, right there. Let's stay on the curb line. It's harder.
Okay. There we go.
Sidewalk.
Okay. There we go.
No one, I have no fucking
Got him. Nice. Very nice. What's that?
Siglo Lopez, he was all over this, you know.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen him either.
The first day
Yeah.
he was in front and he disappeared.
Yeah.
Do you want to be over there?
Yeah, let's get over there. So they are going to hit us at 7. All right. Yeah, here we go.
Just a little bit, thank you.
Sorry, man. Right in your shot.
Secret Service.
Yeah, I saw a couple earlier too. Hold on, they're going that way. They're going this way. Yeah. Okay, all right, relax. Okay, hold on. By these bikes. I can get off.
Let her go! Let her go! Let her go!
There we go.
Let her go! Let her go!
Go on through.
Let her go!
Let her go. All right. Maher!
Let her go! Let her go!
That's Gutman.
Let her go!
All right, hold on. We gotta get out.
Let her go!
Thank you, sir. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maher's right here. We got the check. Okay. What's going on? Okay. See, we can't see anything over there. We gotta go over there. Maher! How you doing? Good to see you, man. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you know what happened in there? Someone got arrested? Okay. Okay. You can come to us at any time. I don't hear anything, though. Okay. So there's an arrest happening. Okay. Someone is getting arrested inside of the Damon Green Line station right now, and then they're chanting, "Let her go, let her go."
Here.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. They're coming to us first, then going to Gowdy. Okay. Okay. Watch. Look at this. This guy's gonna get off. Here we go. Yeah, thank you.
Let's go. Nobody's arrested. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Keep going.
Biggie, I'm gonna make your life
Watch your step. All right, we gotta push through here. I don't want to be here. Yep, we're good. Keep going, we're good. We're gonna talk regardless. Here we go. All right, come on here. Got this side. This side, excuse us. All right.
I'm looking.
Yep, I hear it.
Regarding the Democratic National Convention, Mark Rivera and Chuck Gowdy both out along with protesters again for us tonight. So let's check in with them and see where things stand. Protesters in a different area than they were last night. I want to start with Mark Rivera. Mark, where are you? And let me know what's going on.
So we are, okay, so we're right at the new Damon Green Line station at Lake and Damon, okay? So we're just northwest of Park 578. This group of pro-Palestinian protesters marched all the way from Union Park, escorted by police all the way. Although they do not have a permit for this protest, they were not allowed to enter Park 578, but here they are, and they've been funneled throughout this area and now have made it to Damon and Lake. There was a moment just a few minutes ago where potentially a woman may have been arrested inside, had gone inside the Damon Green Line station, but now everything continues to move. There are individual actors who look like they are trying to skirmish with police, but overall it has been very peaceful in this march. So we're going to continue to walk along here. I know my colleague Chuck Gowdy's a little further east on Lake Street, but we are right along with all of the protesters right now. We're going to try and make our way to the edge of this. I've got my cameraman by the arm here, and we're walking here on the edge and moving through.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So you see, there are at least 1,000 people here. This is a very large rally, much different than yesterday in two regards. Number one, this is much larger. This is probably 5 times larger than the protests that happened outside of Ogilvie Transportation Center yesterday. And the second regard that is different is this has been mainly peaceful. We have not seen any real clashes with police in any way, any agitators trying to fight, other than maybe 1 or 2 total people that I have been able to see just in the time that we've been following. So very peaceful at this point. Very loud, obviously, trying to make their point. But we are marching now east on Lake Street, right under the new L station as we're going. So we are going to keep walking. There are bicycle police officers flanking this side, you can see, and they are allowing people to go onto the sidewalk if they want to. There is a good freedom of movement here, even though, again, this was not a permitted protest. The police are being very respectful at this point of the protesters expressing their First Amendment rights here. So we are going to continue to follow this for you. It may look different from where Chuck Gowdy is, so I want to send it back to you, Rob, to get a sense of what's going on over there.
Okay, yeah, we'll check back in with you. You can hear, because those L tracks above you, the protesters amplifying their message. Chuck, where are you at? There's Chuck Gowdy, a little bit of ways away. Chuck, I don't know if you can hear me. Update me on the situation where you are and what you're seeing there.
Okay, they're still taking our shot.
Rob, as you can obviously tell, we're right under the L on Lake Street, one of the hazards of working in this part of town. This is the largest and the loudest protest march that we have seen. Pro-Palestinian protesters, the head of the march, now coming eastbound on Lake Street, making stops for speeches. So far, this has been very large, very loud, but very peaceful. It is a spirited crowd. So far, the police have not had to move in, and there's been very little engagement between the Chicago police and any of these protesters. But Chicago police units continue to move in here. Police officers on bikes, we've seen this MO over the last couple of nights. They line up on the side of the streets just like these folks are doing, tire to tire, and they block the sidewalk. In this case, then, there is an additional lineup of police officers behind them. This is what we've seen during the last 45 minutes or so of this march. Police officers have been 4 or 5 deep on the sidewalks, attempting to get the large crowd to continue moving. They basically took them from Union Park, past the north part of the United Center, and then they swung back around Western Avenue, and now they're headed back that direction on Lake Street. So here they are. It's the beginning of this. The police superintendent, Larry Snelling, has once again joined this group tonight. They have police commanders from the districts here, just about all of the top brass of the Chicago Police Department here as well. Not marching with the group, but certainly walking in front of the group. There's the police superintendent right there. He is engaging with some of the march leaders. And this has been what I would call not only a high-spirited crowd, but seemingly a good-spirited crowd. Far different from what we saw last night in Chicago's Loop, where certain so-called protesters engaged with police violently. And there were more than 50 people arrested last night. That has not happened here. The police are hoping that this group can be gently led back to Union Park, and then they will either continue there or they will disperse. And that pretty much is what the extent of this is tonight. As you can tell, it's large, it's loud, and it's peaceful so far.
As we continue our coverage tonight here, we may just let these live shots play out for our viewers as we watch this unfold. But as Chuck mentioned, it was about this time last night. We went on the air after protesters had gathered outside the Israeli consulate. And Chuck, you alluded to this. That was a group known as Behind Enemy Lines, and the I-Team has covered that group extensively. And yesterday they were pledging violence, which is what they did, and then dozens of them were arrested. Do you, and this might be hard to tell because this protest is so much bigger tonight, do you see or know if Behind Enemy Lines is back out there ready to cause trouble tonight?
Rob, it's hard to hear, but I think I picked up the gist of what you were asking me about. There are many different activist groups that are involved in this march today. Of course, there could be some who were involved in the Behind Enemy Lines march that was last night, where there were a number of people, dozens of people arrested. There may be some of those people who bonded out and returned to the march today. I'm not certain. They're certainly not identifiable here. This is a group of families. There are a lot of children. There are elderly people attempting to make it through this march. They are carrying signs that very clearly express their opinions. It's a largely pro-Palestinian group. There is, however, a Christian delegation here that is expressing their beliefs that are essentially the same as the Palestinian group, that they want to see an end to the Gaza war, a release of the hostages. So it's difficult to pinpoint any one group, as we saw last night when there were so many people arrested in violent clashes with the Chicago police.
Okay, it makes sense, Chuck. We've got two crews walking with these protesters. I want to bring Mark Rivera in, And bear with us wherever you're watching us. Sometimes these shots might freeze up, and we'll try and take our other shot and then come back to me here in the newsroom if our shots go in and out, because we're walking, as you see, with these protesters. I want to bring Mark Rivera back in. Mark, you said this started at Union Park, and they're now on their way to Park 578. Park 578, as I understand it, was the agreed-upon place for protesters that work with the city and federal and local officials, not too far from the United Center. Is that where you're headed now? And you had mentioned these folks do not have a permit to go there?
Correct. So, Rob, these protesters do not have a permit for this march, but I will say they were not able to go to Park 578. Police blocked the entrance on Walcott, all along Walcott and Maypole, rather, to Park 578. They were unable to go that direction and have been instead funneled west on Maypole all the way to Damon, then north on Damon, and now east on Lake. So instead of being able to go to Park 578, they are being funneled into marching in a large circle, basically, from a large square, rather, from where they began at Union Park, just to the east. So we are still at the front of the line here, and we're on the sidewalk at this point. You see, this is very, as Chuck was saying, you see a lot of what they're trying to do here is to raise their voices, calling for an end to the war in Gaza, calling for an end to U.S. support to aid to Israel, and an end of not only monetary support but weapons support to Israel in this battle. And you see, there is a line of Chicago police officers that is marching along with them, not just bicycle police officers, but actually on the other side of us, if you see here, Mike, you can see there are Chicago police officers with their helmets, with their face shields, and some in just normal uniform with their checkered hats here that are marching alongside. None of the, again, I want to draw a contrast from today to yesterday, right? So yesterday outside the Ogilvy Transportation Center, you saw people who were intent on agitating with police and approaching them and actually rumbling with them. Right now, you see people who are not intent on doing that. In fact, these CJP marshals, I want to show you this. Mike, you see these CJP marshals in the yellow jerseys right here? The yellow jerseys? Those are not police officers. Those are basically self-police groups here that are helping people move around, move in and out, and if any of this group gets on the attempts to get out of line here, they try and corral them back, because I think the point of this protest is not to get arrested, as the other one was yesterday in so many ways, was to confront police and to have friction to get their point across. That was what was happening yesterday outside of Ogilvy. Here it's a different story. There's a lot more people here too. There are about at least 1,000 people that have now become slightly separated as there has been more room to walk and move on Lake Street. You see how wide Lake Street is here, and you see how many people are able to go right here from side to side. This is much different than on Maple, where people were kind of a little more shoulder to shoulder. So there are people that are peeling off from this, but you see behind this sign, there are still hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people as you look out. And they are calling, you see, no genocide. Both Democrats and Republicans have blood on their hands. Some of the signs that are here. So that's just the words and the actions that they want to see as they are trying to have their voices heard to delegates and Democrats at the convention.
It is a much different, it's much larger, Mark, like you said. Yesterday we were outside the Israeli consulate, where there were protesters who were there to cause some trouble. They had said that in the weeks looking up to it. Chuck Gowdy also along the route here. Chuck, like Mark said, this group is louder, it's larger, but it's also peaceful.
Rob, this is the end. They don't have people sweeping up, but it's obviously the end. And if you turn around and look the other direction on Lake Street, you'll see that this crowd may actually be returning home dissatisfied, or at least some of them. If the plan was to stage another rally in 578 Park, just north of the United Center, they were certainly not allowed to do that. Probably 4:30 in the afternoon, hundreds of Chicago police officers began lining up on the side of the street with bikes. They were 4 or 5 deep, and by the time this group essentially paraded past that park, there was no way they were going to get in there, and they effectively did not get in there. They were kept out of that park. The police definitely wanted that as their game plan tonight. They did not want this group moving from one park to another and then resetting. And so they kept them moving, they turned them around, and now what you see is the group heading back to Union Park. Again, if it was their hope and their plan to stage another rally in this other park just north of the United Center, they will be disappointed by it. The whole point of that other park, 578, is that it's directly north of the United Center and about as close as an earshot as you can get to the delegates. That's really what they wanted, the closest possible location, so they could potentially get their message out for delegates walking into the United Center, might hear exactly what they're saying. Their opinions on Gaza, Israel, the Palestinians, who have died in Gaza, and that just didn't happen. They were there just for a very short time, but only because the street blocked up, and then they kept them moving.
I was at the United Center for our first night of coverage, Chuck, looking out from the top floor of the UC, and you could see those protesters in that park. They worked with officials to secure that location, and you're right, it was not far from the UC, but well beyond that perimeter, right? And you were also there that first night when a couple of those protesters breached that fence that was reinforced the next day.
Right, Rob. I mean, it was on the other side of the exterior perimeter. It was the fencing that was torn down by some protesters, and as we know, 13 were arrested because of that and spent the night in jail. But they didn't even want them getting close to the fence line. They didn't want to see a repeat of what happened on Monday here and risk that kind of an engagement. So they lined up on the street a block away, the opposite side of the park, and this group did not even get into the park. You're right, you can see that area from the United Center, probably can't hear it. It was interesting because of the way that the roads have been rerouted around the United Center. There actually were some delegates who kind of walked this gauntlet on the same street between Chicago police officers and some protesters who were early arrivals. They had their credentials on and they were all dialed up for their night at the convention. And a few of them did get a taste of what was happening out here on the streets. Thankfully, there was no direct engagement between any of the protesters and these delegates.
Our Mark Rivera has been covering these protests along with Chuck for a few days now. Our chopper's not up in the air because of flight restrictions, so we can't give you an aerial view of this crowd. But Mark, you've kind of surmised how many folks you think are here. How many people?
So Rob, we let most of the crowd pass. Watch out for this curve here, Mike. We let most of the crowd pass, and I mean, just from a rough estimate, there have got to be at least 2,000 people in this group. There's quite a large presence that is peaceful. They are getting their word across, and as you see what's happening here, they're chanting in the streets. We're at Wood and Lake right now. This is actually, we're going closer now back east to the park that this all started at. So we may be going at Union Park. We may be going all the way back to Union Park. Police officers now funneling people, continuing to keep them on Lake. And as Chuck mentioned, this is not allowing them to reset in any one place. Although this group here, you see, has stopped and is jumping and dancing in the street at this point. Right now, there is quite a large presence, but so far, everything that we've seen has been peaceful. And another thing that's happening, you notice, as that group is jumping clapping and dancing. There's quite a large berth in between this group and the group in front of them, with another probably several hundred in front. So just to give you a sense, it's not that this group is really breaking off in any way, but it's not as cohesive as it was in terms of sticking together in a line or a formation than it was just a few hours ago. They're now starting to move again, but I want to give you just a sense of this. We are now going east again on Lake past Wood, and we're going to turn. I'm guessing Chicago police officers are going to keep this group and funnel them south again over to Union Park, where this all began. And then after that, we don't know what happened. Will this group of thousands of people disperse eventually? Perhaps, but we will have to see what happens. Although I will again reiterate, this has been completely peaceful from what we have seen. There have been some people that have climbed, the sides of the L track and waved the flag, but no one has attacked police officers that I have seen. No one has, defaced property in any way. So they are chanting. They're getting their points across. But right now we're just marching along with them to see exactly where Chicago police officers have a plan to funnel them and to make sure that where they end up. And whether that is Union Park, where this all started.
These protesters exercising their First Amendment rights tonight, which is what the governor and the mayor and the federal government said they wanted to ensure. And that is happening. And just from here, and I'm not there with you guys, it just does seem to have a different vibe than downtown last night. I want to let people know where they are here. So Chicagoans might be familiar with this, but Park 578 is just north of the United Center, and that's where some of the protesters were permitted to demonstrate. East of that is Union Park, and that's where Mark says they're marching back to. And obviously those L tracks, Chicagoans will know, that's Lake Street. That goes east and west for many, many miles. And so I'm guessing, Mark, you guys are going to walk toward Ashland at some point here. So Lake and Ashland might be the general area.
We just passed Hermitage, so we are continuing on east on Lake Street. So we are going to continue on. And it looks like Paulina is the next one up here, where there's an intersection. And it looks like they're continuing to be funneled east along Lake Street.
Okay.
So that's what's happening at this point. The crowd there still is some separation between various groups in the crowd, various, clumps basically of protesters that are on Lake Street. But right now we're continuing to walk east on Lake.
Yep, our producers in the booth, Michelle and Alex, keeping an eye on where you guys are. About 2/10 of a mile from the park, so not terribly far. These parks are only a few blocks away. Chuck, his signal froze, it looks like. Chuck, if you can hear me, are you behind? Oh, there he is. Okay. Are you also heading east now, a little bit farther back behind Mark?
Right, at Hermitage and Lake Street. Now, as the crowd continues to go back to Union Park, we're talking about crowd size. It's always tricky to try to estimate a crowd. Forget about a moving crowd like this jammed into 2 or 3 lanes of highway. In Chicago, as you know, it became an art form 40 years ago. The city used to have actually a formula where they tried to figure out how many people could stand in a 10-yard square, and then they multiplied it out based on how many squares there were. Well, when some scientist looked at it, he figured that really wasn't accurate, and so the city gave up on doing crowd estimates a long time ago. So it's kind of up to us to do it by feel. Certainly this is the largest protest crowd we've seen all week, substantially bigger than the biggest until now. It's several thousand. That's probably the best I can do.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. Over the years, I know you and our crews and myself have covered many protests in this city, and that looks to be one of the larger ones we've seen in some time. Loud, as we mentioned, but remaining peaceful and exercising their First Amendment right. And we could just watch here if we want for a minute or two, along with this protest route, and the two of you feel free to interject if our signals come and go. You see 2 shots here. This is the same protest on Lake Street. This is north of the United Center. Even though they're just a few blocks north of the United Center, that perimeter is secure, and it doesn't look like these protesters are trying to get to the United Center. They're almost going from park to park, just north or northeast of the UC.
What we do are being written in books in heaven. They're being written in books in heaven.
Some of these chants, they may include some vulgar language. We apologize for that, but we're on live here about 7:30 Central Chicago time. If you're just joining us, you're watching perhaps from out of the city. This is another night of protests outside the Democratic National Convention. The protests that got violent last night were downtown outside the Israeli consulate. This is closer to the United Center, but north of the secure perimeter. And Mark Rivera, who's out again with the marchers, estimating a couple thousand of them. They're loud. Being below the L track certainly echoes that, Mark. But you do see a huge swath, a variety of people marching with you, all ages, a lot of people, and they're marching along the route, staying on that street, heeding police as they continue.
Yes, so there are people of all ages. I've seen the very old and the very young. I saw a child on the shoulders of someone, and I saw an older gentleman using a cane walking on the sidewalk. I just want to give you a sense of where we are now. We are just north of Union Park, and we are being funneled by Chicago police officers along with all of the protesters who are here going towards Union Park. So we are going to head south right now. It looks like, here we are, we're going into the group here as we move across the way here, and to see this line of police officers, take a look, making sure that people are turned onto this street. This is what we've been seeing in this protest strategy, and Chuck's talked about it as well, but the Chicago police officers using their bodies as blockades, essentially. Bodies, bicycles, whatever it is, to make sure the groups go in a direction that they want them to go, not necessarily where the protest group would like to go.
Yeah, that worked yesterday, Mark.
We are at Ashland.
Okay, so we are at Ashland. Okay, so we're at Lake and Ashland here.
We are at Ashland.
Chicagoans know where this is, Ashland 1600 West. So right there, just a few miles west of State Street, where we are downtown. So they're a few miles out of downtown, but only a few blocks northeast of the United Center, but well outside the secure perimeter, Mark.
We are well outside the secure perimeter. Again, this is the park, as you mentioned, where the early protest in the week on Monday, a pro-Palestinian protest that was permitted, this is where it staged before it went over to Park 578. And you can see now Chicago police, the protesters, kind of slowing down as we have gotten back to Union Park. There is not a lot of movement here. There are some waiting school buses and some other charter buses over there as well. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, hold on. There's something going on here.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, there's a person up there. You see this right here on the L station. There's a person with a Palestinian flag waving. Two Chicago police officers.
They're just not going to tolerate it.
In their hands. This is the same person, I believe, that has climbed multiple things along this route. Part of the L track, stood on a barricade earlier. So this looks to me like the same person that did that. We are watching now 3 Chicago police officers try and take this person into custody, the person trying to resist. 4 Chicago police officers, many people with their cameras out behind. Okay, there seems to be another person here. Okay, who is part of the organization perhaps that is trying to talk them down, trying to de-escalate the situation, who's just arrived. We have 2 more of those people. We have a group of lawyers. You can see them in the green hats. The National Lawyers Guild is here as well. Okay, there we go. It looks like... Okay, let's see what's happened here. I don't know if this person is being taken into custody or not.
No, I know it's hard for you to see, Mark. That's those CJP marshals.
They're walking down it.
Yeah.
Yep. So they're walking down, and they are not currently in custody by Chicago police officers. They are not. So they are just walking down, and that looks
Oh,
that looks like the end. This is the group. This is the group that has been. You see what I'm saying? Those two people in those green vests. This is a group that is policing itself in many ways, trying to, as soon as any one of its members gets involved with police, they step in and try and de-escalate the situation, bring them down. That person is not in Chicago police custody and has now just joined the rest of the protest.
Oh, that was.
We are continuing now along here.
Yeah, Mark, it was hard for you to see probably, but your camera zoomed in. That's exactly what happened. Those CJP marshals, I think at first that protester might have thought it was police. They talked to him.
Right.
He listened to them, and they just walked back down onto the parade route. That is not what was happening yesterday. A lot of those agitators wanted confrontation. That protester there, he was up on the elevated tracks, and then he cooperated and he's back down.
Yes, they are back down now, and you're absolutely right. It was incredible to see that, a de-escalation from within the group to make sure that that person not only did not end up in Chicago police custody, but was able to rejoin this protest. And we see now we are back at Union Park. I want to give you a sense. We're back here. We are on Armitage now, going south on Armitage. Not many people in Union Park, but many people still walking in the streets here. And there's a question really of what happens now, because you can see there's a barrier in the middle of the street, and now the protest has to be bifurcated and go in two different directions, so along the street, and that allows people the opportunity to peel off. And some are, I see, going into Union Park right now, but you see Chicago police blocking this street over here as well, this cross street here, Maple, back on Maple. They are still blocking the roadblocks actually there, the road closed signs. And now we are, there is a group of Chicago police officers here. Let's not get crushed in here, let's go to the side. So we are right over here, I want to show you. Right?
Well, you're on Ashland right there.
Corner, right?
Yeah.
Ashland.
Yeah.
We are on Ashland and Maple right now, and there is a line of Chicago police officers all the way down on Ashland right here, and then also west on Maple. Okay, so this is where the protest, this is where Chicago police are saying the protest ends, because right now they are not going to let people continue through south onto on Ashland any farther. Superintendent Snelling is right here on the front line. You see him, let me move you over here. He is right here on the front line there. You see him
just
again.
like he was yesterday.
Yeah. Yes, he has been on the front line yesterday during the friction that was outside of Ogilvie and the Israeli consulate, and now we are seeing him on the front line with his police officers here, standing guard and in two rows. Again, this is such a different situation today than it was yesterday.
Yeah,
because
Mark,
this has been mainly peaceful.
Stay there for a second. We're probably going to keep your camera or go to a split box here because we want to go back to Chuck. Chuck, you're a block or so away, and listen to the difference. How much quieter it is by you. You're at the tail end of this protest.
Right at the turn. I mean,
okay.
Exactly. And the police commanders have said over the last several days, tonight's a great example of it, that they're making on the ground game time decisions based on the way that this all feels to them. And so that's why they have kind of maneuvered these blockades, rolling blockades, if you will, of police officers with bikes, police officers on foot, and they have managed to get this entire crowd, several thousand people by my estimation, headed back toward Union Park. But I think that the game plan all along was not to let people back in the park. As we've repeated numerous times today, they don't have a permit to be in the park, to protest or do anything else. And so I think that the police have tactically made a decision that they don't want to do that at this point and just give an open-ended ticket to a group that shouldn't be there in the first place.
Chuck, how do you surmise the police response? And a lot of times, and you talked about this yesterday, we don't see them, but they're there, and so are their vehicles, especially if they have to make arrests. Do you see fewer police than we did last night outside the Israeli consulate?
No, I think it probably would be approaching that. In fact, if you take a look at these larger vans, these transport vans are the ones that this time around we have seen officers being moved in from location to location. It was only a few years ago that CPD really did not have these logoed, well-painted, brand-new vans like this to do this. They, in some cases, would have to rent vans or use unmarked vans, and they were the ones that you'd see sitting in the middle of Michigan Avenue, where officers would stage, as they put it in their business, until they were needed. In this case, this is what you have. You have officers being transported from scene to scene based on where they're needed. These vans are, for the most part, full, which means that they don't need the additional manpower at this point, thankfully, although they certainly do have quite a show of force on the streets.
Yeah, this is a different glimpse than we got yesterday. You and Mark were so much closer to the protest, and it was a much smaller area. And we were talking about the backup that police have, excuse me, and you can see it here. You get a real sense of how prepared the Chicago Police Department.
Well, the difference also yesterday was, it was a hostile situation that turned quickly yesterday, and when that happens, it goes down the line. Everybody realizes, because they're hearing it on their radios, that officers have been engaged and there are arrests underway, and they're calling for transport vehicles to take people in handcuffs, and that changes the whole complexion of the night. They're not going to be as eager to give a smile and wish you farewell. When things like that go south, the entire street force ends up paying the price for it.
What the Chicago Police Department prepares for was executed last night. They seem to be prepared for these protesters on the move tonight between Union Park and Park 578. This is closer to the United Center, but well outside the perimeter, northeast or so, a few blocks from the UC. The camera you're looking at right now, that's Chuck Gowdy's camera. We have two crews here. Chuck is in the back of this protest. Mark, are you in the park now? Are you back at Union Park?
So we are right at Union Park on Maypole, okay? We're at Maypole and Ashland, and we are on the Union Park side of it. Many of those protesters have gone into Union Park, and I believe they are actually going to start setting up on the stage for more of a rally type of situation instead of a protest march. But I want to give you a sense right here. There is dancing in the streets here. This is such a difference than last night when we saw confrontations with police, fighting in the streets, arrests being made. This is absolutely not the case here. These are people who are expressing their First Amendment right for an issue they are passionate about, and you see that they are Chicago police. Even though this was not a permitted protest, the Chicago police are respecting that right, and they are, although they are funneling them through in a way that makes sense for them safety-wise, these people are able to march through the streets of Chicago and express themselves, and you see there's almost a sense, there's a sense of pride happening here. There's a sense of excitement and passion, but there's not a sense of antagonism and friction and any sort of issue that they may be attacking anyone. They are here to have their voices heard, and that's exactly what's happening. And I think that's an incredible difference tonight than what we saw yesterday. I will say Chicago police are ready. I mean, we have hundreds of Chicago police officers holding the line here, not allowing anyone to move farther down Ashland past Maypole, funneling people into the park, and Maypole is also blocked off as well. But there's not even visually, it's completely different. These officers are all in their normal uniforms. There are not face shields, helmets involved in this because things have not escalated, and that is something that I think is truly a real positive in this moment, because after what we saw yesterday, no one wants to see violence on the streets of Chicago. No one, regardless of where you are politically, no one wants to see violence on the streets of Chicago. So what we're seeing now is a nonviolent protest that has been able to be worked with the Chicago Police Department and now funneled into Union Park. And you see many of these protesters are now making their way into the park. In fact, some of those, that same group that is sort of self-policing, those CJP marshals, are now directing people into Union Park. So this protest that started here at Union Park marched past Park 578 and now has gone all the way north on Damon and back east on Lake Street, south back to Union Park, where they are setting up now for more of a rally situation. And and less of a protest march again, Rob.
Okay, Ashland and Lake Street are kind of cross streets where Union Park is, and Maple. It's a short little stretch of Maple there where Mark is. Do you have a sense, Mark, on how long Chicago police will let these protesters do what they're doing? It seemed like yesterday you and Chuck heard police warning those protesters here downtown, you got to disperse or we're going to arrest you. Are you seeing that at all, or are they just going to let these protesters continue?
From what it seems to me right now, they are going to let this continue at this point. There is not a lot. There's really no word, no action from police officers, no words to disperse, no warnings for them to move out in any way, shape, or form. I think what Chicago police were able to do incredibly successfully here was to funnel this group right back to Union Park, and that's where they wanted them. It started here. They wanted them back here. It's a wide area, and they are able now to stay here and do what they're doing. Now, there is another line of police officers that is starting here. I'm not exactly sure what that's about in terms of what they may be doing, so we're going to move into the park now. Okay, there is someone. Okay, there's a small, it looks like there's some sort of small confrontation potentially going on, but we are watching a line of Chicago police officers just move their way into the park at this point. Again, we have heard no word to disperse, at least from here, no loud horns calling out to say to anything to these protesters at all, actually. So I'm really curious as to, like you are, as to how long this will be permitted, even though this is not a permitted protest. But we will see this group now, very successful in their march, and now just back at Union Park in this moment.
Yeah, we see Chicago police, the top brass, those white shirts usually indicate a sergeant. And speaking of white shirts, the superintendent, Larry Snelling, was there at the Israeli consulate last night. He's back. Yeah, you've seen him. He's still here working with the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, and no doubt communicating with these protesters who are cooperating or seem to be cooperating with where police are guiding them. And you're now back, and the city's behind you, I believe. So for people who are unfamiliar, we could see some of the high rises behind you. So this crew is directly west of downtown Chicago, and northeast of the United Center, about 4 blocks or so. So well outside the perimeter, in what's called Union Park. It's not Park 578, which is not far away. That's where some protesters have gotten permits, have worked with officials to protest there. This is only a few blocks away from there. But it doesn't look like there's any inclination here, Mark, to try and walk toward the United Center, which is reinforced.
No, not at all. Yes, not at all. Right now, there seems to be a protest circle where there's drums that are being hit and chants being said, but really there's no inclination at this point that anyone is going to be trying to go to the United Center to move around in any sense at this point, other than Union Park itself. And there is, as you see, it's quite a large surface area, so people are able to spread out, and because it's not as a cohesive of a group as it was earlier as they were marching through the streets, but there's much more freedom of movement here as there is more space, obviously. Chicago police are still on the scene, and they have moved now up toward the sides of Union Park. So right now it looks like Chicago police are sort of, I believe people will be able to leave at this point as they move, if they would like to. It looks like you can go back onto the street or maybe catch the L over at Ashland. But right now you see bicycle police officers also moving to another location on Ashland too. Meanwhile, there's chanting here in Union Park, and some people, milling about at this point. And they obviously, you saw thousands in the streets making their voices heard. But again, this has been completely peaceful from what we have been able to see.
Yeah, Mark, you and Chuck estimating a couple thousand people out there, the biggest protest we've seen this week by far, but also peaceful. We only have 2 cameras. I shouldn't say say, too, we've got 2 live cameras here. We've not seen any arrests. And it was almost at this time last night we were starting to see many arrests. This protest was on the move about an hour ago. They've now moved back to Union Park. You see Chuck Gowdy and the I-team there on the bottom left of your screen. Mark is at Union Park. And Chuck, you've relocated. We can sure see a lot of police officers behind you.
This is part of those game time decisions that I was telling you about. In addition to letting people back into the park, although a lot of them have left, it's not nearly as big as it was when they were on the move. They've also repositioned Chicago police officers here on the street on Ashland Avenue, not just because they might need them, but I think that they want to have an idea if a large group of people decide to head west toward the United Center, they're going to attempt to not let that happen in some organized fashion. There's no evidence that that is happening. The group that is left over from the march continues to wave flags and play music, and the speech making may start again as well. Appears as though it's as peaceful and loud as it once was when it began, but Chicago police have actually sent in additional officers in the last 15 minutes, I think just because they aren't certain the way that this is going to play out at this point.
It looks to be dispersing, or there's just so much area for them to be in with that park. And Ashland's behind you, it's open. I can see cars heading south there. Like, there's traffic moving right alongside where you are.
Right, well, the roadways are open. They certainly didn't want to close them down. It was enough of an inconvenience for motorists that they had to close down a little bit of Western Avenue and then Lake Street to allow for the procession to move along to get back here to the park. But don't forget, even if there was a play made to go west and to move toward the United Center, there's a lot of protection between here and there. Not just these officers and the reinforcements you can't see in the buses, on the side streets, but there's also several layers of perimeter fences. So it's not as if that somebody is going to be able to go from this park and storm the United Center to make their point, nor is there any evidence that that's under consideration. It would appear as though the intent of this was to be peaceful, and almost 100% that's exactly what it's been up to this point.
Yeah, I was at the United Center for night 1 of our coverage. Nobody's getting close to that. It was extensively secured. It took a long time for us to get through security. This is a great map, thanks to our crews here putting this together. So let me walk you through this. Downtown would be off screen to your right or east. Union Park is where Mark and Chuck are, and there you see the United Center and Park 578, where there was permitted protests allowed, and you were watching with us live here. These protesters were in Union Park, and Mark marched with them along with Chuck over to Park 578 along Lake Street. The L tracks run east to west here.
We're good, Michelle.
And then they turned around, and now they're back at Union Park. And this map gives you a great look at how big Union Park is. And now we're seeing, Mark, that a lot of these protesters have widened. They're in the park, and the police seem to be letting them stay there.
Yeah, so right now I just spoke with one of the CJP marshals that we have been talking about throughout this, who have been working within this organization to de-escalate situations when anybody tries to interact with police or do something that they think is an unproductive way to protest at this point. They've been very successful at that. They say that the planned protest is over. This is what would be considered the after party, and that, you know, the marching or the chanting can continue. But they believe that police will tell protesters to leave the park as soon as the sun sets, because those are the rules for Union Park. The park closes at sunset. So Chicago police, we'll wait for them with this to happen, obviously, but they are expecting Chicago police to ask people to leave when the sun officially sets.
Mark, we're going to probably stay on the air here till about 8, so we've got about 7 minutes to go here on our breaking news coverage. I wanted to ask you real quick, we watched this live. There was a protester up on the elevated tracks, and police looked like they were about to arrest him. And then those CJP marshals worked with that protester to coax him down. and we did not see an arrest. Who are those marshals? They're with these protesters?
Yes, they are with the protesters, and they have been from the beginning. You've actually seen them. It's almost like a shadow police force as well, walking with the protesters on the sidelines in front of the bike police throughout this route. We've seen them, and they step in when someone starts climbing on something or doing something that would surely get them arrested or would provoke a police response. They step in and try and de-escalate the situation with the protester themselves, and we saw that successfully. We saw that here at Ashland and Lake at the L stop, where someone was waving a flag and there were 3 or 4 Chicago police officers trying to arrest that person, but then the CJP marshals came in and de-escalated the situation, brought that person down, and they were not, dealt with in any way with the Chicago Police Department today. So we have seen a very peaceful protest here in many ways because of that group that has been with them the entire time in order to try and keep order during this protest and during this expression of the First Amendment right.
It was really fascinating to watch that unfold live with you, to see the cooperation as the peaceful protest continued. I want to go back to Chuck. Chuck, we're going to wrap things up here in just a few minutes as the sun starts to set. You are at a different location, not far away from Mark, but what a difference compared to last night. Different protesters and a different scene.
Well, certainly a much different outcome. Yeah, absolutely. A different outcome, at least for almost 60 people who spent last night in jail.
Yeah.
The Chicago police, have to be happy with the way that their tactical plan played out. And if you look this direction, you have a lot of people leaving now, especially people with little kids, older people who have just probably walked further than they have in the last couple of years. People were out of breath after this 1.5 mile march through the West Side. Those things all weigh in the complexion and the outcome of events like this. And at least for the moment, this outcome couldn't have been much better.
Yeah, the night is yet young, but you're right, it looks much more peaceful. And that was incredible to watch from here. A huge group, thousands of protesters, exercising their First Amendment right and not agitating anyone, it seemed. We only saw one person, and we're watching YouTube, but we only saw one person who got into a brief altercation with police, and it quickly calmed down. Now Mark is there along the park route, and there you see the officers, and you both noticed this. These officers are not wearing any riot gear. They're not in helmets. They're not. They're just on standby there right along Ashland.
They are on standby, and as Chuck mentioned, and as I saw earlier today around 4 o'clock by Park 578, there were about seven buses full of Chicago police officers in riot gear, in full riot gear, waiting on standby just in case, right? And you heard the superintendent talking about this earlier today, talking about the strategy of overwhelming if necessary, and that was there if needed, but obviously it was not today because we see Chicago police officers in their normal uniforms and no riot gear to be seen at this point. Right now, as one of the CJP marshals mentioned, this is really just the after party, some chanting, banging on drums after a successful, I would say, the group would probably categorize this as a successful protest because no one, it seems, has been arrested that we have been able to see from our vantage point. You hear cheering. The sun is getting closer to setting. I mean, sunset officially has already happened, but it's twilight out here now. So the question is what's going to happen in the next moments and minutes as Chicago police will likely try to clear the park at some point tonight because, again, this is not a permitted protest, but people are here expressing their First Amendment rights. There are a lot of Chicago police officers up and down Ashland and bike police officers that have been moving all around as well. So we will see what happens in the coming moments, and we'll be here for that.
Yeah, their voices heard, at least on our stream as we've been on the air here. for just about an hour, walking with these protesters who were gathered near the United Center, well outside the perimeter.
Your guys. Okay,
Chuck,
good.
I don't know
okay.
if you're still there. We're going to go off the air here in just a few minutes, and I don't know if you have any final insight from there. Both these guys will be with us tonight after the convention. Cheryl Burton and Ravi Baishwal are inside the United Center. I'll be here in studio, and Chuck and Mark will file late reports for us. Chuck, it just is what a difference you have seen and your camera crew has captured compared to we were on the air a lot longer last night.
You talk to the Chicago police commanders who have to deal with the planning for this and deal with it up close and personal when it's happening. They said that as long as things went the way they did tonight, people could stay on the streets. They would help them navigate their way. They would allow them to protest unencumbered. They could be as loud as they wanted, but if they crossed the line, if they became physical with any police officers, if they did any property damage along the way, that was going to be a problem. And that's what we saw last night, certainly is what we saw Monday when some people tried to take down fences and eventually did take down pieces of fences and got through that first perimeter gate. It's this type of an event tonight that the police were hoping to have every night. We'll see what happens through the rest of this evening, and then, of course, tomorrow, the last night of the DNC.
And Chuck, night 3 here, wrapping it up for us. I know you'll be working to get some information. If there were any arrests during this protest that you were there with, our thanks to you, especially your crew and your security, keeping you guys safe as you bring us the latest here. Mark Rivera, thanks to you and your crew. I know you've got some work to do. Here's our plan for tonight. We will cover the convention over on ABC, and then we will continue our 10 p.m. newscast right after that. Mark and also Chuck and the I-team will have the latest new information on what we saw, the largest protest, it seems, these last 3 days, peaceful as they gathered in Union Park.